Okay, so this is an incredible teaching for Parshas Vaeira. Extra special treat, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson has a class on this teaching, um, which which is what I listened to. And you could all listen to that class directly. This will just be a taste to get all the details. He has such rich language, and I'll just try to bring a little bit of what he's saying to us, and we could discuss it together. And it's an amazing class. Okay, so this week's parsha is Parshas Vaeira, and we know we have the Makkos in this parsha. And we start, the Yidden are getting ready to leave Mitzrayim. Now things are turning around and turning around for the Jews, and things are looking good for the Jews. The Geula is coming, and what we're going to focus today is not so much on the parsha, but on the Haftarah. So what is the Haftarah? The Haftarah are parts of Navi that we read after the Torah reading. And the reason why it was instituted is because way back, I'm not exactly sure at which time in Jewish history, but it was forbidden for the Jews to come together in Shalom to read from the Torah. So what they did was instead they read parts of the Haftarah that were connected to the Torah reading to remind everyone about what the Torah reading is. And what's so incredible is that whatever lesson we're supposed to walk away with from the Torah reading, that you find that very lesson in the Haftarah.
I usually start telling them it's very so fast.
Yeah. So this week's Haftarah is Yecheskel, the end of chapter 28 and chapter 29. But you know what? After this class, you're just gonna like where's the closest Navi? You're just gonna want to open it up and devour it because it's so incredible. Okay, so what does the Haftarah say? That there's 3 points in the Haftarah. The first 2 parts of the Haftarah is a nevuah. Nevuos that Yecheskel says to the Jewish people. But let's first give a little bit of background, historical background. When is Yecheskel? What time period are we holding? Okay, so just like it is today, it was way back then, that Israel is the bridge between the north and the south, between the empires of the north and the empire of the south, which was Egypt. In those days, the big empires were Syria, Babylonia, and Egypt. So Israel is in between. Egypt is beneath it. And then you have Syria and Babel, which is modern day Iraq, above it. So Israel is a great country in a very bad neighborhood.
That sounds good.
Right? Okay. So what happened at that time? Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of Babel, he was trying to take over the whole world. And he actually took over Eretz Yisrael. And what did he want? He wanted the Jews to give him a lot of money in taxes, and then he would leave them alone. And what happened was there were some Jews who convinced the king of Judea, the king of Yehuda, to fight against Babel. And Yecheskel came and said, don't do it. And what happened was Egypt told the king of Yehuda that if you go and fight Babel, and Babel comes, you want to have your independence, you want to have your freedom from Babel. If Babel comes to attack you, we're going to come and help you. So the king of Yehuda is going to fight Babel, and he thinks that Egypt is going to be his ally. And Yecheskel said, don't do it. But the king did not listen, and they still went and fought against Babel. And what happened? The Churban Beis Hamikdash, the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and the Jews were taken to Babel, and that's what happened. Okay. So the first nevuah that we find in Yecheskel, chapter 28, 29, is Hashem says, for two reasons, Egypt is going to be destroyed. So, and this is why it's similar to the Parsha, because in this week's Parsha, Egypt is getting destroyed. This is happening hundreds of years later, and Egypt again is going to be destroyed for two reasons. Number one, because they were a poor support for the Jewish people. They said, we're going to help you. We're going to be your ally. And they ended up being like a reed that you lean on. If you try to lean on a thin reed, what's going to happen? You're just going to fall to the ground because it has absolutely no support. So number one, because Egypt promised to help the Jews and did not, they're going to be punished. They're going to be taken down. And also because Parai, the name Parai, the leader, was still called Parai many generations later. And the thing of Egypt and the thing of Parai is Parai says that Parai is compared to a great serpent who says the river is mine, the Nilos is mine, and I created myself. So Egypt represents ego. So because Egypt and Parai has this tremendous ego, and because they didn't help the Jews, therefore they're going to be destroyed. By who? By Bavel. By King Nebuchadnezzar is going to destroy them. And then even after they get back to themselves 40 years later, they recover. They're never going to be a great empire again.
Hashem is still depending, even though Yecheskel said not to do it, Hashem is always the Jews that Egypt promised to help. And they just depending.
Right. Yeah.
And Hashem is always defending us. He said, told us not to do A, B, C, and we're still doing it, and we're still there in our corner. I mean, this is like a story of a life. Always. On individual level and on, global levels. He never gives up on us.
Yeah. But the chutzpah that they said that they're going to help us and they didn't. Okay, true, we should have never, fought them. We should listen to Yecheskel. The Yidden should have never fought them. But just the fact that they promised to help, and when it came time to help, they didn't come through. For that alone, they deserve to be punished, and they deserve to be punished. So number one, so that part of the Navi makes sense. It should be the Haftarah of this week is very much connected. In our parsha, Parai and the Egyptians are getting. Are falling, are collapsing, are getting destroyed. They have the Makos, and then years later, the same thing's happening again. Makes sense. But now comes the second part. The second part of the Haftarah is as follows. The second prophecy Yecheskel says is that there's a country called Tzur. Tzur is near Lebanon. In English, it's Tyre. And they were also a very egocentric and very immoral place and people. And Hashem's, and the nevuah is that because Nebuchadnezzar did Hashem's will and did what Hashem wanted, which was Hashem wanted Tzur should be destroyed. And what happened was Tzur had a lot of booty. They had a lot of great stuff that Nebuchadnezzar could get from conquering them. And Nebuchadnezzar had to work very, very hard. And his armies had to work very, very hard to conquer Tzur. And what happened was they should have gotten tremendous booty and tremendous good stuff from conquering Tzur, but then there came this big tsunami, and all the booty that they could have had was all washed away. So welcome. So how unfortunate that Nebuchadnezzar was not able to get all the spoils from Tzur. So therefore, Hashem is going to give Nebuchadnezzar a reward, and the reward is that he is going to get Egypt, that he's going to conquer Egypt. I'm not really sure, but it's in the Lebanon area. Today everything's
turned over so many.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so who is Nebuchadnezzar? Nebuchadnezzar is a very wicked individual who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. He considered himself God. He wanted to take over the world. And he conquered Sur, not because he wanted to do Hashem's will. As a matter of fact, if he knew that it was Hashem's will, he probably wouldn't have done it. And he only did it because he had to conquer Lebanon in order to conquer the world. It's right in the middle. You know, he needed it. So this is crazy. This wicked individual who caused so much Jewish suffering, so much Jewish blood to be spilled. What's the big nevuah? That as a reward for him conquering Tzur, that Nebuch had to work so hard to conquer Tzur. Therefore, Hashem is going to give him Egypt. So we could just just that in itself, like why are we giving him a reward? He deserves the worst of the worst. What kind of reward? And then comes the very last pasuk, which I just wanted the English, so I asked Bila to put it on the chat. And what does it say? The last pasuk. On that day will I cause the horn of the house of Israel to blossom out, and I will give you free speech in their midst, and they shall know that I am the Lord. What is Hashem saying? What is Yecheskel saying? Hashem is telling Yecheskel to tell the Yidden that there's going to come a time that all the people, the Yidden, who don't believe in your prophecy, they're going to see that your prophecy came true. And they're going to believe in you, and they're going to know that Hashem is Hashem. That's the three parts. I think okay, fine. Okay. Okay.
So he's saying, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Who is they? The heathen?
The Yidden. So I'll give you free speech in their midst means that now everyone's gonna know that everything that Yecheskel said was all true. Anyone that doubted him is gonna realize that his nevuah was all true and all straight from Hashem. And this is all part of so these are the three parts. Number one, Mitzrayim is gonna have a downfall. Why? Because they didn't come to support the Yidden when they promised, and because of their great ego. Part number two, Nebuchadnezzar is going to get this great reward. He's going to be the one to conquer Egypt. He's going to get Egypt. Why? Because he did what Hashem wanted and he conquered Sur, which we don't understand why he deserves a reward in the first place. And second of all, how is it related to the parsha? And third of all, this fact that, thank you so much, that at the end of all this, the Yidden are going to realize and acknowledge that Yecheskel is a true Navi. Okay. Okay, we're gonna see something so beautiful. Of how we're gonna see something so beautiful, how the whole world is turned over, just that the Yidden should be able to learn that the Cheskel is a true Navi. Let's go back to the first part of the Nevuah. The first part. Yeah, thanks. Okay. The first part of the Nevuah was that there are two reasons why Mitzrayim is going to be destroyed. Number one, because they didn't come to support the Yidden. And number two, because they're so full of ego. And the question is, even these two things are seemingly two different issues. Why are we mixing them together? Okay. The explanation for everything is, in order to understand this all, we're going to go back to end of last week's parsha. What happens at the end of last week's parsha? Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Hashem and he says, Lama hare'osa la'am hazeh. Why are you making this nation suffer? And Moshe Rabbeinu has even a bigger question. You want to make the Yidden suffer? I can't, listen, whatever, this is what you want. You understand, fine. Or not fine. But why is it you asked me to come and save the Jews and speak to Parai, and now that I came, now what happened? Now it's even worse for the Jews. Why do you have to make it worse for the Jews now that I came? What happened before? The Yidden were given straw to make bricks. And now after Moshe Rabbeinu came, I said, oh, the Yidden are lazy. They're finding reasons to, they're slacking off. They have time to complain. Now they won't have any wheat. Now they have to go collect, their own straw to make the bricks. So Moshe says, listen, it's your business. You want to make them suffer? That's your business. But why are you making them suffer more now that you asked me to come? So what does Hashem say? Hashem says, the Avos, I only revealed to them with the name Kel Shakai. I didn't reveal Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that name, to them. And they never questioned me. And you, I come to you, reveal to you the name Kel Shakai, and with the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and you're asking me questions. They never asked me any questions. They were a Merkava, they were a chariot to God. They never asked any questions, and here you're coming and asking questions. How is this an answer? Hashem could have said, I don't want to answer you. Hashem takes the time to answer him, but how is this an answer? Hashem's giving a whole long explanation. The Avos, okay, I'm not talking about the Avos, just give what. Okay, well, it has to be the answer. What is it?
Yikai is a chesed name. Hashem is telling
Yes.
I'm doing this with chesed. I always tell my girls, this is Shem with chesed. That's a food. This is Shem with chesed. That's what Hashem is saying. It's calming us down. This is what chesed.
So you're saying Hashem is answering a different answer?
No, Hashem has to address Hashem is answering his question. And how is it an answer to his question? Basically, what's the answer to the question? Moshe is coming and saying, you told me that what happened by the burning bush? Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I heard the Yidden's cries, so I'm telling you to go to Mitzrayim and tell Paro, let the Jews go. You heard the Yidden's cries, let them go. What do they make it harder for? Once Moshe comes, everything comes harder.
He wants them to see Hashem. Good question. It's a good question.
So what is the answer? The answer is Hashem is telling Moshe, you know what? The galus has to be very, very difficult. You know why it has to be so difficult? So difficult that it has to get better. It has to get worse before it gets better. You know why it has to be so difficult? That even after you come, and it should be better for the Jews, and it's even worse now. You know why it has to be so horrible, and so much suffering, and so bitter, and so horrible, and so much worse? Because the galus is an introduction to Matan Torah. It's so interesting because we said this 1,000,000 times, and now we're saying it 1,000,001 times, and we're going to learn the whole thing again, and we're going to understand it on a whole new level. We learned last time that Galus Mitzrayim was a preparation for Matan Torah. Now we're going to say the same thing, and we're going to take it. We're learning it on a higher level. So we already know that Matan Torah is the first time that people were empowered to integrate godliness into the world. Until Matan Torah, there was godliness, was in heaven. There was no merging of heaven and earth. What happens, Matan Torah? That window is open, and now we could bring heaven down to earth, and earth could be elevated up to heaven. This is this concept is completely novel and a very, very difficult thing to accomplish, that earth could go up to heaven and heaven come down to earth. We dream at night, right? We could have all kinds of dreams. We could dream that we're in two countries at the same time. We could dream that we're in the shopping, that we're shopping or buying everything in the store. We could have all kinds of wonderful dreams. But there's something that a person will not dream about. A person will never dream that an elephant fit through the eye of a needle, because it's so impossible. The elephant is so big and the eye of a needle is so small. It's impossible. No one on this earth would ever dream about an elephant going through the eye of a needle. And yet, both an elephant and a needle both have a certain size. They're relative to each other. And still, we would never dream such a thing. So how much more so is the difference between a human being, a physical human being, and an infinite God? And what happens, Matan Torah? Hashem comes down on Har Sinai, and Hashem makes the impossible happen. That a yid, a finite human being, a creation, could be connected to infinite God. That's an impossible thing. A million, gazillion, bajillion times more than an elephant going through the eye of a needle. Because the elephant and a needle are both finite things. And here you're talking about infinity. There's no, you're talking two different worlds, right? A person, before Matan Torah, a person could reach the greatest heights, and a person could reach deep within, but you can't go beyond, before Matan Torah, a person couldn't go beyond their own depth. You could climb and climb, but you can't go beyond your own depth. For example, a tree. Look at the tree. You could look at the branches, you could look at the trunk, you could look at the fruit, you could go look at the roots. But you can't go beyond the roots. There's nothing beyond the roots. You want to go deep, go deep. You could go deep. You could go dig the roots of the tree. But you can't go beyond the roots. That's it. If a person wants to pick himself up, you could take his hair and you could pull your hair. But if you're pulling your own hair, you can't get anywhere because you're pulling your own hair. If someone else pulls you up, okay, you could rise up, but you can't. You could only go as deep as you could go. So if you have a soul, you could only go as deep as your soul can, as deep as your soul. Within, because we're at the end of the day, we're still creations. A person before Matan Torah could only go as deep as they could within the framework of creation. There in Chelm, they heard that in Warsaw, someone invented a train. A Jew invented a train, and they couldn't believe it. A train doesn't have any animals pulling it. No donkeys, no horses, and the train moves. And for 7 days and 7 nights, the people of Chelm had a meeting, and they said, we have to. This is crazy. It's impossible for a train to run without an animal pulling it. And this Jew who invented the train, he's a big liar, and it's not fair that he should get so much money from the train when he's deceiving the whole world. There's got to be a horse pulling it somewhere. And if no one is going to stand up for the truth, we have to stand up for the truth. After 7 days and nights, they decided they're going to send a delegation to go to Warsaw, and before the unveiling of the train, they're going to go and check out the train and find the horse. They go to Warsaw and they spend the whole night. So they're looking and looking and looking for the horse. And they couldn't find the horse. And they come back from Warsaw, and they have the whole community, everyone gets together, and they said, this Jew, he's even a bigger liar and a deceiver than we ever thought of. We couldn't find the horse. We tried so hard. He made it's such a tiny horse. It's basically, he figured out how to make it an invisible horse. And as much as we tried, we weren't able to find it. And yet, look, he's going to be so rich because he figured out how to make an invisible horse make this train move. So what happened? What's going on here? They couldn't fathom that there's a concept called electricity, or they were in their box. They couldn't get out of their box. They couldn't get out of there was no paradigm shift. They were stuck in the concept that there has to be a horse pulling the train. They couldn't get out of it. So the same thing is with us. We can laugh at that, but there's a lot of times that we have our reality, and anything happens has to fit into our reality, and we can't break out of our klein keppeldigkeit, right? So this was what happened. This is the situation before Matan Torah. You could connect to Hashem. You could reach the highest level, but it was all within a certain box. It was all within the framework of that there has to be a horse. That there has to be a horse to fathom that there should be a concept that there could be a train going without a horse. That was a paradigm shift, a complete change that happened by Matan Torah. And what happened by Matan Torah? Until Matan Torah, if you wanted to connect to God, it was all about how connected did you feel, and how and your intention. The physical didn't really matter. The question was, are you self-centered or God-centered? It was all about the intention, your kavana, your feelings, your emotions, awareness. And if it's about me, I could only climb as far as my resources could get me. But what happened was, by Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah, then Hashem said, now I am giving you 613 mitzvahs, 613 ways, paths, access points where you could connect to me. And this is God's will. And in order for this to happen, in order for the possibility that a physical human being could connect to an infinite God, there had to be a paradigm shift for the Jewish people and for the whole world. And the humanity had to be crushed in order to be able to open this new channel that everyone could be able to for God and for the Torah. And it wasn't something that could be gradual, but rather it was something that had to be very, very radical. And it was on two fronts. The Yidden had to suffer very, very badly, to become so crushed and broken and bittul, to be able to achieve this brand new paradigm shift that a Jew could connect with Hashem, and that we should be able to have that connection with Hashem. And also, after the Yidden suffered, the Egyptians also had to suffer. And that's why there were 10 Makkos. The 10 Makkos, Hashem could have just, killed out the Egyptians, just sent the bomb and whatever. But no, it was a process of 10 Makkos to crush the Egyptians. And Hashem heard the Nilos and the frogs. Each thing had so much depth and reason and how, and the kinnim. Why the kinnim? Because for each thing was to counteract something else. That usually magicians, they could do magic, but it has to be, with something that's larger than dust. And here Hashem made, the kingdom from dust, and told the magicians themselves, said that this is God's finger. So every single one of the Makkos was all in order to. Thank you for coming. Was all in order to crush Egypt and to prepare the world for Matan Torah. And this is very. When I heard this, it gave me a little bit of comfort, because right at this moment, we were so lucky to get back 3 hostages yesterday. But and it's bittersweet, because we're so happy to get our hostages back, but yet it's so sad that so many murderers are being let free. For the price that we're paying, and it seems like they won. And yes, we're might be in a state of extreme humility and brokenness, But guess what happens after we're in a state? After we're in a state of humility and brokenness, guess who's next?
See, it's so interesting that you said that because I wasn't thinking that. I saw this clip today where the parent, the father and the brother of one of the girls put on tefillin,
Wow.
you know, since she was
Started 2
there.
months ago.
And I was just thinking like, wow, you know, that here they had, you know, we had this devastation, so that was the lowest, right, October 7th. And now this is coming up, some people are free, whatever. And even if 90 people were free, but they got very bashed. So far, they got pretty bashed, I think.
But we have a lot.
I don't know.
They have a lot more to come. They have a lot more coming.
Also, you know,
Yeah.
so it's.
Yeah, but you see, it's
They
the
don't
same.
know this yet, but they got
It's the same pattern. It's the same pattern. Whatever happened in Mitzrayim is a pattern.
Line is that's the problem. We are living in this still low, and we don't know. We know the end is gonna be good.
Right.
It's not good. It's not the end, but the journey is pretty.
Yeah, but what happened was
Pattern.
in the story of Egypt, it was the Jews that were crushed first,
Right.
and then it was Egypt that was crushed. So if they think that they're victorious, they have something coming.
problem is with them, it's the same way like they hate the Jews and hate whatever. They think they're victorious, but they know in their heart how many people they've lost.
They don't care. They
care.
don't like not
They
the
don't-
value by
but they
their.
don't care. That's
They
what
don't
I'm
care. It
saying.
doesn't mean
So
That's why they set
consider
the
only
missiles
as
and everything to begin with.
But that's
Yeah,
why the
but
whole
they don't-
victory in general, you know, like, what do they say? When Mashiach comes, everybody's gonna recognize Hashem.
Yes.
You know, so like somebody says, really, they say they're, you know, they promise them the 72 virgins, but the head person is not taking on the job. What's the matter? He doesn't want 72 virgins, you know? So it's just.
Shows how belonging.
So they're so hypocritical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what we should know that the end of this road is going to be the end of this road is that they themselves are going to acknowledge. They themselves are going to acknowledge their brokenness and their suffering. We're nowhere near. We haven't touched. They haven't touched. They haven't seen one bit of what's coming to them, because when it's coming from Hashem, they're going to have a big surprise. They're going to have a big surprise. Yes.
They have new comments, like, they come up like frogs, you know, like, you know what I mean?
Cockroaches.
And it's not pretty to see that, I'm just putting it out here.
We all fell in sin with you the same way.
You know, if you saw the switch of those 3 hostages between the foes, and you saw that switch and that, you know, that crazy, you know, so that's my question here.
So you know a milkshake? Do you ever make a milkshake? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So so what's going to happen is the world is shaking. They're going to go through a milkshake. Okay. They are going to be crushed. You put in the strawberries, the bananas, whatever you want. You press power, and it's going to crush them. They don't know. They have something coming to them. Because this is the way it was by Mitzrayim. This is how it's going to be when Mashiach comes as well. There's going to be this crazy crushing process. And yes, we're the ones that are suffering. We're the ones that are suffering now. And the Jews were the ones that suffered first. The people of the book. But guess what? In order for Matan Torah to happen, the entire land of Mitzrayim, they had to go through 10 Makkahs. So to trust the Torah. Trust the Torah. What is it?
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing by chance. Hashem is giving very, very big messages. And they say, oh, it's in California, oh, it's not us. Just wait. We're so advanced. And these people are invincible. The fanciest homes. And yet we're powerless. And that's what it means, bittul. When we start recognizing that we are powerless. And that Hashem is in control. And guess what? The whole world is going to come to recognize that, because that's what it means. That's what Mashiach means. And we find that in Mitzrayim, it was first the Jews that suffered, and then Egypt. And that's what's going to happen as well. So we shouldn't feel so sorry, because the Eibishter is in control, and Hashem is going to, he's going to they're going to have their time in the food processor, wherever, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Or pull something or sprinkle something way back when he asked Hashem, why do you have to make it so difficult or even harder?
I missed the beginning of the question.
Did he instill for the future generations Moshe by asking that question? Was it, or like what our lifetime would look like when he asked that question? Why is it so difficult? Is it?
Was he asking for our gullus also? Very well could be. He saw the future. He saw everything it was going to be, and it's a very strong question. But you know what? There's going to be a major paradigm shift between Galus and Geula. That's huge. That's like before the giving of the Torah and after the giving of the Torah. There's going to be a tremendous shift, a tremendous change. And imagine, there's going to be a tremendous lift for the whole world, especially for the Jewish people. Imagine if you're sitting in your house and you look out the window, and you know what you see? A spaceship arrives, and out comes I don't know, a guy in a spaceship, in a space gear, and says, "Come on board. I'm taking you to outer space. I'm going to give you a lift to outer space." But you can't get a lift to outer space in your regular clothing. You need to have that gear in order to survive. In order to survive in outer space, if you just go the way you are, you're not going to survive. You need your oxygen, and you need whatever you need to survive up there. The same thing is with us and with the world. In order for there to be a Matan Torah, in order for there to be Mashiach, we're going to have a tremendous lift. And guess what? We have to be prepared, and we have to have the proper gear, and we have to change. We have to be ready for this lift. We can't just stay the same. Yeah. So there had to be a complete shift and a breakdown, so to speak, of the Jewish people to form a new people, that they could be ready to accept Matan Torah. There's going to be an unbelievable change. Before Matan Torah, you could only go as far as you could go based on your intellect and your emotions and your soul power. Comes Matan Torah, and now with a simple action of taking a penny and putting it in tzedakah pushka, you are connected to infinity. That's a whole new reality. And in order for that to happen, there had to be a rebirth, a recreation of the Jewish people. And that's why the suffering had to be so hard and even more difficult, because it was literally a crushing process. You take an olive and you crush it, and what comes out? The olive oil. The best part of the olive comes out when you crush it. It was literally a crushing process. And it's not just for the Jews, it's for the whole world. And we had our turn, and now they'll have their turn. So to be able to withstand this change of that's going to happen by Har Sinai, we had to be rattled. You have a balloon, and you need a needle to pop the balloon. And we all have our balloons. And what happens is when a person who never has any challenges, and everything always goes right for them, it's like a balloon full of hot air. All of a sudden, something comes, there's a health challenge or whatever challenge is, and then you pop the balloon. And then all of a sudden, you look up to God. And a person changes. There's a transformation. There's a change. And that's what happened then, and that's what happened now. And it's the struggles, unfortunately, why can't we just change with lollipops and vanilla ice cream? I don't know.
I tried it by Pashas in the times of Noach. They had so much good, they had so much abundance, they completely forgot about Hashem.
The nature of human being.
Yeah.
For some reason, this concept in Egypt, there was a Nilos. They never had to look up to God for rain. They said, oh, the river is mine and I created myself. There was no God in the picture. Versus in Eretz Yisrael, where there isn't, where they have to look and pray for rain. All Hashem wants again and again is that we should turn to Him and say, God, I get it. I am not in control. You are the boss. So this suffering redefined the Jewish people and created a new type of, a new reality, a new nation. So now we're going to answer. We said, what is the connection? We said Mitzrayim is going back to the Vaeira. Mitzrayim is being punished for two reasons. Number one, because they said they're going to help the Jews and they didn't. And B, because they had so much ego. Seemingly, it's not related. But the truth is, it's very related. We have Aseres Hadibros, 10 commandments. 5 on one side, 5 on the other side. The first 5, Anochi Hashem, I'm God, your God. Lo yelech don't have other gods. Lo yisisa Shem Hashem kach lashav, which don't say God's name in vain. Keeping Shabbos, honor your father and mother. That's the first 5. Then that's called a bein adam lamakayim, between us and God. Why honoring our parents is part of the first 5? That's a question. That's another question, because we're honoring God by honoring our parents. And Hashem is a partner in our creation. Hashem is also our parent. And then you have the other 5, which is bein adam lachaveiroi, between man and man, which are don't kill, don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't testify falsely, and don't be jealous. And Rabbi Jacobson says, I just have to say it because of the snow, he says he's walking out, it's snowing outside, and he walks down the street and he sees a house where they have heating under the pavement. So as the snow falls, it melts. He says, don't be jealous of the neighbor who doesn't have to shovel their snow because they have this whole system that the snow melts itself, because they're taking away the experience of the children, that growing experience of shoveling the snow, of having to deal with God's world and the snow. But don't be jealous, even of the neighbor that doesn't have to shovel their snow. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so why do we have Aseres Hadibros, bein adam lachmakayim, bein adam lachaveiroi, 5 like this, 5 like this? A person might say, why do I need the first 5 Aseres Hadibros to guarantee the second 5? Of course I'm not going to murder. Of course I'm not going to steal. Of course I'm not going to, take someone else's wife or testify. Those are all things that make sense. You could say, I'm a fine person. What do I need Matan Torah for? Why do I need the giving of the Torah for? I know already not to kill, not to steal. Makes sense. You can't have a society with people just taking other people's wives and killing and stealing, doing and acting like that. Ultimately, as kind and as civilized as you are, if you're doing it because of your nature exclusively, ultimately, your nature is a reflection of your ego, and your ego reigns supreme. And if it's about your kindness, and since you're kind and you're going to you're kind by nature and you're going to fulfill your nature, then what happens if there's a conflict between being kind, between your nature and your own needs? As kind as I am, my identity comes first, because I never liberated myself from my own self-centered paradigm consciousness. Okay, what does this mean in English? What this means is, look at Hitler, and the Nazis. They were so kind. They were kind to animals. But if your kindness is all based on your nature, which is your ego, then if it's between my identity and someone else, then I always come first. And then you find excuses for the worst crimes of humanity, which reminds me.
Can you say more on that?
Yeah. Okay, this story I'm going to repeat on Thursday in Tanya class from Rabbi Ari Shishler. He says, he says that he was in Poland by the concentration camps, and there was a tour guide, and the tour guide said that they captured a certain individual, and they asked him, well, what was your part in the killing of the Jews? So he said, I didn't do anything. All I did was I was in charge of the signals of the train. So when a train would come to Auschwitz, when the train would pull up, I was in charge of signaling when the train could go, when the train could stop. That's all I did. And every day he came to do his job. So I didn't really kill anybody. And then you ask the next guy, what did you do? All I did was I forced the Jews into the train. That's it. All I did was I opened the train and I let them out. All I did was I separated the men, women, and children. All I did was I took away their clothes. All I did was I escorted them into the gas chambers. Only one person dropped the gas, but everyone is on the bad side. So you could convince yourself when it's all about my ego, when I haven't transcended my ego, I could convince myself that the worst thing isn't bad at all. All I did was I signaled the train. That's all. I'm not bad. I'm a wonderful person. I'm a kind person. I'm a wonderful person. All I did was I opened the door. All I did was I separated the men and the women. I didn't kill anybody. In Tanya, we're going to learn that we think there's black and gray and white, black, white, and gray. But at every moment, you're either serving Hashem or you're not serving Hashem. You know, there's such a thing as being half married. Either you're married or you're not married. Either you're on the holy side or on the other side. So as long as I haven't gotten out of my ego, my nature could be so kind. But what happens is there could come a situation where if it's between me, my ego, and being kind, right? Then I come first because my ego's first. And then any behavior could be excused. And that's the problem with saying, oh, it's just a small little thing. Are you on the good side? Are you on the side of Hashem, or are you on the other side? Everything could be pushed aside. Everything can be pushed aside when it's not what I want, or when it doesn't meet my needs. Or if it's not good for me, then everything else, when it's good for me to be kind, when it pays me to be kind, I'll be kind, no problem. But if it's between me and you, a person who's still who has never matured and is still and has never cultivated anything, and and their ego is supreme, then they're capable of doing anything when push comes to shove.
Okay, you're saying that kindness depends, it can be distorted, you're saying? Kindness can be, if it's done in a way of selfishly for me, so that's ego-based. And if I was doing kindness not in a distorted way, I was doing it for Hashem. How would kindness stay stable if I was using it in the nucleus of a thing?
The only way kindness could stay stable and is guaranteed to stay kind no matter what is if it's connected to Hashem. Otherwise, there is no guarantee for the kindness whatsoever. Yes. There's no guarantee to kindness unless you're doing it to serve Hashem. If you're serving yourself, then if it's gonna come between me and someone else, then I'm always gonna win. My ego is always gonna win if it was never cultivated. So what is the connection between these two seemingly things are seemingly no connection? That Mitzrayim is getting punished. Why? Because they weren't there to support the Jews when they promised that they would, and because of their crazy ego. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. Why did they come to support the Jews? Because of their ego. Their ego wasn't in check. Because they were so full of themselves and it's me, and there's zero God over here. So if it's pays for me to be your friend, to have an alliance with you, then fine. But as soon as it's going to take a drop of sweat off my back, forget it, I'm out. And then all my friendships are gone because they weren't friendships to begin with. Because all the friendships was all about was all ego based lechatchila.
Wow. It's all about what benefits me.
Yes. So the reason why Egypt was punished was really one thing. It's two issues, but it's two sides of the same coin. Because they had such a strong ego, edging God out. It's all about me and nothing about God. Therefore, when the Jewish people they promise the Jewish people they're going to help them, but all of a sudden they realize that this is going to be a crazy war. We might lose some soldiers, and it might not be to our benefit anymore. Goodbye, Charlie. Therefore, they deserve to be conquered and punished by Nebuchadnezzar. Now we're going to understand that the connection between the second part of the Haftarah, and Nebuchadnezzar is going to get this tremendous reward that he's going to get Mitzrayim. Why? Because he did Hashem's will and he conquered Sur. What happened was with Matan Torah, by the giving of the Torah, that now a physical act connects you to Hashem. Even if you don't have the right intentions, even if you don't have the right intentions, you did an act, you did what Hashem wanted, you're connected. And remember, the Jewish people, they couldn't read the Torah. They needed to get that lesson. Where are they getting that lesson from? From the Navi. Nebuchadnezzar was the biggest Rasha, the biggest anti-Semite. He gets a reward. Why? For an action that he did. That happened to be what Hashem wanted. He had no intention of doing what Hashem wants, but the action was done. And therefore, he got rewarded. And the reason why this is part of the Haftarah, it's very much connected to the Haftarah. Because it's telling us, why do the Jews have to suffer so much? So that they should be prepared for the giving of the Torah. What's going to happen at the giving of the Torah? At the giving of the Torah, that's when action is most important. That's when action matters. It doesn't matter if you how great you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. You did the action. You were connected. To teach, and even the biggest Rasha who did an action that Hashem wanted got a tremendous reward. How much more so is our actions so precious and special to Hashem?
You didn't. What did you give as an answer? Why couldn't they just apply for?
Because you're only going to stay true to not murdering and not stealing and not being jealous if you are committed to the first 5. I am God, your God. Don't have any other gods besides me. Don't swear at Hashem's name in vain. Unless there's an Eibishter, unless you're not self-centered, but you're God-centered, there is no guarantee that your kindness will be kind, will stay kind. If it's just about your ego. You know what your ego is? Your ego is your animal soul. And you know what I'll tell you something? And we're going to learn in Tanya this week about the animal soul. The animal soul is an immature baby. And it never grows out of it. An animal soul wants, desires, petty things, and gets angry for small things. It's an inner child within us. So if it pays for me to be kind, I'll be kind. But the second it doesn't pay, I'm out of here. And if that's us, that's Jewish people with an animal soul, then how much more so non-Jewish people who their animal soul comes from Gimel Kupasat Tameis. They don't do anything for Hashem. They're doing it for their self-glorification.
But then you just said that the action counts, even if they
Ah.
didn't.
Yes. So for non-Jews and Jews alike, the change that happened in Matan Torah is that if you do an action, you give tzedakah. It could be that you're doing it only for the plaque on the wall. Doesn't matter. If you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah is done. There's a connection, and it's done, and you're going to get your reward for it, and you're connected to Hashem forever.
No matter what mitzvah you do, it changes you inside.
Yes.
You know, so you have a people, you ever heard of her?
Yes.
She says she speaks to people in Eretz Yisrael. This was way back when I heard her. And they said that we're not religious. She said, you walk 4 hours in Eretz Yisrael, you're doing a mitzvah. She tells them you are doing a mitzvah. Just by walking 4 steps.
Of course, we're full of chesed. Even the Rishayim, it says that even the Rishayim amongst the Jewish people are filled with mitzvahs, like a pomegranate is filled with seeds. Absolutely. Okay.
1 second, and how do you connect that you can't see the roots of a tree? Where does that come in?
Okay. So up until the giving of the Torah, you could only go as far as the roots of a tree. You could only go as deep as you could as a creation, as a finite human being. But after the giving of the Torah, then you're able to touch infinity. You're able to go beyond. You're able to take that spaceship and go to the moon. You could completely go to places that you could never reach on your own. But we needed the avodah. We needed the avodah of the avos first. First, a Jew has to get out of the mud and reach as high as they could. And that's what the avos did. They did whatever they could with every fiber, every part of their being. They reached the highest level that they could. They never asked questions from Hashem. They climbed Mount Everest. But you could only go as far as your legs can carry you. You can't go to the moon with your own feet. It's not going to happen. You could only go as far as you can go. You can go to Mount Everest. And then you need a spaceship to come pick you up. So the avos, they climbed out of the mud. And they climbed and reached as high as they possibly could with every single power that Hashem gave them, with their mind, with their intellect, with their emotions, with everything that they did. They tried to connect, but they could only go to a certain point because they were finite creations of God. They reached the top of Mount Everest. And once they reached the top of Mount Everest, for us, for all of us, down comes Matan Torah, and we're lifted up to a whole new paradigm shift. And now a finite human being can connect to an infinite God. That's why I'm a Matan Torah. After their work comes, then we were able to be lifted out. And therefore, the Gullahs had to be so hard. We had to remake the Jewish people. They had to recreate, rework, and create a people that can be ready for this unbelievable brand new concept. This unbelievable thing.
But what the others were considered chariots, they were considered. You're saying that after Matan Torah, Jews had to go connect on a higher level than others? Others only had.
After their work, after their legwork. Yes.
And after the Torah, connected even on a deeper level?
Yes.
Because they got the Torah, right? The next group of people got the Torah.
They were considered chariots, they were considered like.
The highest of the high. So you see, we could do a mitzvah with the zero intention, with the zero kavanah for our own self-centered reasons, and we're still connected. That didn't work then. Before the giving of the Torah, if you were crying for your own reasons, that there was no spiritual. There's nothing spiritual to that. Only if you.
The highest of all humankind.
If they did it with intention, and if they hadn't done it with intention, they would be nothing. There would be no connection at all with Hashem.
You had to have awareness of God before the giving of the Torah in order to be spiritual, in order to accomplish anything. If you want to connect to Hashem, they were a merkava. They did everything that Hashem wanted. They fulfilled all the Torah mitzvahs, but it was it was a different world then. Like compare us to what's going on when Mashiach comes. There's no comparison. It's a different world. You can't. It's a different field, a different playing field. So they did the best that they could. They reached the highest level that they could reach. Which, if they were in our world, could you imagine where they would be? But they were the perfect chariots to prepare the world and to prepare us to take us out of the mud. Someone had to do the dirty work and take us out of the mud. The rocket ship can't get us out of the mud. We have to get to the mountain. They picked us up from the mud, and that's what the Golos did. It took us out of the mud and took us to the top of Mount Everest. A person has to do whatever we can. And then after we do whatever we can, then Hashem can lift us up. And that's what happened by Matan Torah. That through, with the help of the Avos and through the terrible suffering of Galus Mitzrayim, we were able to climb out of the mud so that the world could change drastically. Okay, so what do we learn from this? Yeah. The Shvatim were continuation of Yaakov. Absolutely. Okay. What happens if today someone does you a favor and you know that they did that favor for you, but they had ulterior motives? They weren't really thinking about you. They were completely thinking about themselves. As a matter of fact, so someone says, "Oh, did you say thank you? Why should I thank them? They did it totally for themselves." Rabbi Jacobson says he was in a house and he hears a conversation between a daughter and a father. The daughter says, "You owe me so much money. You owe me this amount of money." So the father says, "Really? I owe you money? You owe me $300,000 for all the rent and the tuition and the toilet paper that you used in my house. You pay me $300,000, and I'll pay you what you're saying that I have to pay you, right?" And the kid could and you could tell a kid, "Oh, aren't you thankful to your parents for everything that they do?" And the kid could say, the Rebbe says this, the kid could say, "Why should I thank my parents? Every parent wants to have children. Parents love their children because they love themselves. The parent is getting their child a beautiful dress because they love themselves. They want their child to look good." So a child could say, "Why should I respect my parent? They're doing it for themselves." But the answer is that even if they're doing it for themselves, you still have to have the respect for your parents because action is what matters. After Matan Torah, I don't care. It doesn't matter if a person gave me $100 for tzedakah, okay, and they had to give $100 because they had to give meiser anyway, and they had a trouble in their life, and they felt that if they're going to give, that they needed an organization to give tzedakah to, so that they should feel good that they're doing something on behalf of the whatever they need, right? So you could say, "Why should I say thank you? They're doing it for themselves. They need the bracha. They need to give the tzedakah. They're looking for someone to give tzedakah to." But no, you have to thank them. You have to thank them because in this world after Matan Torah, it's the action that counts. It doesn't matter what the intention was. You did the mitzvah, you connected to Hashem. Someone did you a favor, doesn't matter if they weren't thinking about you. They did you a favor, you're obligated to say thank you. A child, he has a roof over his head, food, toilet paper, whatever it is, you have to say thank you. It doesn't matter if the parent, had the toilet paper because they needed the toilet paper for themselves also. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yes. And therefore, Nebuchadnezzar, who had the biggest ego of all, he did an action, which is what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted Sur to be overtaken, to be conquered, to be destroyed because of their ego. And who did it? Nebuchadnezzar. He did the action. Did he do it for Hashem's reasons? No. He did it for his own glory. He wasn't thinking about Hashem. And yet, he had to get a reward. And therefore, we read this in the Haftarah to teach us a lesson. Why, to answer this question, why is there so much pain and suffering? Why is the Gala so difficult? Why is that once Moshe Rabbeinu comes, it gets harder before it gets easier? Why is the suffering so much? Because it's a preparation for Matan Torah. What happens to Matan Torah? Matan Torah, you do action. Doesn't matter. You have zero intention. You connect it to Hashem. And even Nebuchadnezzar, the worst of the worst, did something that Hashem wanted, and he got a tremendous reward. How much more so when we do an action, the reward that we're going to get from Hashem. And that's why that is part of the Haftarah, because it's teaching us the same lesson that the Parsha is teaching us, that the suffering of the Galus wasn't for nothing. It was to prepare us for this new shift, this paradigm shift of when the most important thing is action and learning Torah, which is A, it's a mitzvah, and B, it's not just any knowledge of seasons and weather and astronomy and physics and all that, but rather it's Hashem's wisdom. Torah is Hashem's wisdom. And so when we learn Torah, when we do mitzvahs, we're able to connect to infinite God, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the intention was, as long as the mitzvah was done.
What was that answer from Gita?
That the galus has to be so difficult because we have to prepare for a new type of world. Of why?
Hashem said I didn't. My
The
Abba
old thing to ask.
didn't ask me like this, and therefore,
I only revealed myself with the name of El Shaddai. And now I'm revealing myself to you with the
Okay, so the answer to the question, you're right, it wasn't addressed. But now that we're learning it together, it's very clear. Kel Shakai and Yud Kei Vav Kei are two complete. Yud Kei Vav Kei is a much higher level, much higher. Hashem is saying to the Avos, I only revealed to them Kel Shakai because you know what? They were only able to reach a certain level. I want to take you on the rocket to the moon. I'm revealing to you Yud Kei Vav Kei. We're going to a new phase. The new thing is happening here. Is that this world is changing. From a galus to a geula, from a galus mitzrayim to a time of after giving of the Torah, when a finite human being could connect that infinite God. So therefore there has to be the suffering, and it's a whole new level that we're reaching, a whole new, a completely new world. After giving of the Torah, your person fulfills Hashem's will and is able to completely transcend the human paradigm. A mitzvah, when a person does a mitzvah, he links his life with God's essence. A person does a mitzvah or learns Torah, he links his life with God's essence. I mean, that's unbelievable. And as we said, to reach that level, we first need the avos. First, they had to climb where they could climb. And then when they reach the top of Mount Everest, then after all the work of the avos, then we could transcend ourselves. We could leave our ego behind. We could rise higher. We are completely shaken up and we could transition and completely change. And now comes the last part of what was the last part of this nevuah. The last part that we said that through Hashem says that through the Mitzrayim being through Nebuchadnezzar destroying Mitzrayim, and what's going to happen? Everyone is going to see that you are a true Navi. So it's a world war here going on. And one of the purposes of this crazy war, there's thousands and thousands of troops involved. You have Egypt, there's a world power. You have Nebuchadnezzar, the world power, one world power fighting the other world power, thousands and thousands of troops. And what's the purpose of it all? So that a few Jews would recognize that didn't believe before, would recognize that Yecheskel is a true Navi. And Yecheskel was a known prophet. The first prophecy that he said that Egypt would be destroyed was in the 10th year of his prophecy. And the second prophecy that he said that Nebuchadnezzar would be the one to destroy Egypt, that was said in the 27th year of his prophecy. It wasn't a brand new prophet who just came to town. But for the benefit of a few Jews, it was worth it that all these world powers, so this World War III, whatever World War it was worth it that a few Jews should believe in the Eibusher and believe in the true Navi. The Baal Shem Tov says that a Jew comes to this earth for 70, 80 years just to do a favor for another person. And where is the source of that? Where does the Baal Shem Tov, what's the Baal Shem Tov's source that a Jew comes down to this earth for 70, 80 years to do a favor for a person, and it could be just physically? This is the source. Yecheskel 29. This is the source. The Bavel attacked Egypt. This huge story. Just that a few Jewish people should believe in Hashem's prophecy. And a person could ask, is it really worth the effort to help one Jew? To help one Jew to light Shabbos candles, to put on tefillin, to kosher their home, to bring them close, to teach them Torah. Is it really worth it for one Jew? And the answer is 100% yes. Hashem will turn the whole world upside down to benefit one Jew, to benefit one cynical Jew, to trust and believe in Hashem. And the Rambam says that we have to look at the whole world like a scale. And one mitzvah, one good deed could tip the scale and bring salvation for the entire Jewish people. One simple act can change the world. It looks to us like there's big world events, great world events. But all those great events could be just to help a few Jewish people. And it's vice versa. It works both ways. The great world events is to help a few Jews, and the work of a few Jews could change the entire world. And we see this, that the tiniest bit of matter, the tiniest movement could change the world. Look at COVID. The tiniest thing of bacteria, the tiniest thing of a little virus could change the whole world. There's no such thing as something that's too tiny. It says that the Alter Rebbe describes that there was a 7-year war in which there was a 7-year war in which there were many, again, thousands of troops involved, and from all the war and the marching bands of this war, a niggin. There was someone who composed a niggin, a Hasidic melody, based on all the noise of all the marching bands of all these soldiers. And then there was a tzaddik that served Hashem with this melody. There had to be a war for 7 years so that tzaddik should serve Hashem with a certain melody. So we see the world shaking. We see world events, and we could say, what does it have to do with me? I'm a little insignificant person. I'm sitting here in Tom's River. What's going on in Israel? I have no control. I have no power. There's nothing that I could do. But we have to change our mindset. We have to realize that this whole world is here just that one Jew could do one mitzvah. And the power of a mitzvah is unbelievable. And the action, it's the action that is what counts. And Hashem could turn the whole world upside down just that one Jew will become closer to Yiddishkeit. And this teaching was said in Parshas Vaeira of 1967. You know what happened in 1967? Right before Shavuos was the 6-day war. And what happened? Israel was surrounded by 7 nations that wanted to devour and throw all the Jews into the sea. And everyone was sittering. As a matter of fact, the head, I don't know, I forgot what it's called. The chief rabbi of Israel prepared 10,000 graves They were terrified. And the military, everyone was shaking in their boots. And there was one man, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, one tzaddik. And Lag Ba'omer before Shavuos, he came out for a rally for children. And he told the children, please increase in Torah and Tefillah and Tzedakah and Avos Yisrael. And he said, Israel is safe, nothing to worry about. And it made headlines because no one else said that. And the Rebbe started the campaign for everyone to put on tefillin, the soldiers to put on tefillin. And what happened in just 6 days? Yes, there were 800 casualties, and everyone is the whole world. But they were expecting 10,000. They were looking for. They thought that it would be catastrophic, and in 6 days we won the war. And Rabbi Jacobson says that this is a postscript. He says he's saying on his own, and it could be that the whole world had to change so that a few people should believe in a tzaddik. Basically, okay, the class is done. We passed our time limit. Basically, and we went from north to south to east to west. I mean, we took a million things over here. Basically, the bottom line is that don't think you're just a little person, but realize that as a Jewish person, your action is so powerful that it can literally change the world, and it's why the whole world is here in the first place. And we see these world events and we don't understand. Instead of just sitting and crying, we are the ones that could change everything. Because when a Yid does a mitzvah, he or she connects to Hashem, which is the greatest thing in the world. Nothing beats that. And if Nebuchadnezzar did Hashem's will and got such incredible reward, how much more so when we will go out of our way to be extra nice to someone, not for our ego, but even if for our ego, it doesn't matter for what, to do a mitzvah, just to help another person, then we really have the power to change the world. Okay.
I told my lady.
Wow.
I emailed her, and she didn't respond, so I